If you obey the commandments of the Lord your God that I command you today, by loving the Lord your God, by walking in his ways, and by keeping his commandments and his statutes and his rules, then you shall live and multiply, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land that you are entering to take possession of it. Yeah. Love the Lord your God by walking in his ways. Love the Lord your God by walking in his ways. Walking in his ways. If you obey the commandments of the Lord your God that I command you today, by loving the Lord your God, by walking in his ways, by keeping his commandments and his statutes and his rules, then you shall live and multiply, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land that you are entering to take possession of it. Yeah. Love the Lord your God by walking in his ways. Love the Lord your God by walking in his ways. Walking in his ways. Love the Lord your God by walking in his ways. Love the Lord your God by walking in his ways. Walking in his
So we're doing things a little differently. Normally we would have the kids sit down and we would do a special kids sermon with them. But actually, we're actually going to bring some of the families up, and most of y'all will actually go back with your parents. You will probably appreciate that. So if I have asked you to participate in this, y'all go ahead and come forward. That means, yes, Dalton, Derek, where is it? Kyle and his family, and then... oh my goodness, not the time to forget a name. Bryce Donaldson, thank you. And we're falling off the bat already. So y'all can go ahead and all of y'all can go back to your parents except for Wyatt and Valerie. So y'all all come up here. We're going to arrange y'all from youngest kid, which means Wyatt and you and your dad are going to start over here. Y'all go ahead and stand up. We're going to stand for this. Valerie, you'll stand next to him here. Donaldson's, I'll have y'all here. And then we'll end with the oldest over here. This is going to work great because we've just talked about walking in the Lord your God. And we actually just sang Oceans. And what was the line of Oceans? Lead me where my faith is without fail. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander. Sometimes we make a prayer and God just answers it immediately. What we're talking about today is walking by faith rather than by sight. And what we encounter often in life is we know the promises of God. We know what God has told us and that we should follow that, but our eyes are just so convincing in making us go the opposite direction. It's so easy to go with what we know we shouldn't do. So what we're going to do for all of y'all, we're going to start here, and we're going to work our way down. Y'all are all going to receive a food choice. One thing is going to be a good item that looks bad. The other is going to be a bad item that looks good. One item you will not actually have to taste or eat. Everything else, I do expect a good solid lick or bite out of it, okay? So understand that when you're making the choice, this isn't a theoretical. We are living out the choices that we make. I need to grab a table that's down here, and we are going to bring up our first items. Kira is going to be helping me. Yeah, you can go ahead and bring that up, please. If I can have our first two people up, Dalton and Wyatt, y'all's choices are... Your good item that I would recommend eating is the stick of deodorant, or the item that maybe you shouldn't choose are these nice Oreos. So the question for y'all is, do you want to lick and eat some deodorant, or do you want to take a bite out of some Oreos? You want Oreos? Is that what y'all are going for? Even though walking by faith says that's not going to end well. Are you sure you want to do Oreos? Are y'all locking in your final answer for deodorant? All right, let me see. One of these. All right, why don't you pop the top off of that? Give that a good lick, Wyatt. Now really commit. Give it a full send. Maybe even take a bite out of it. Don't worry, Dalton. We've got one for you. There you go. Just take a good old bite out of that for everybody at home. Oh. Now, it says deodorant on the outside. What is it actually? Can you tell what it is? Is it gross and disgusting, or does it taste sweet? It does taste sweet. This is actually fruit roll-up that has been mashed into a deodorant container. Awesome. Y'all can go ahead and take a seat. We're not going to make anyone else go with the deodorant. Kira, can I have the second option for, actually, we'll just take the second green one at this point. All right. Derek and Valerie, I'm going to have y'all. So the choice for y'all, you can either go with the deodorant that's still there, or have some of this moldy bread. I pulled it out of my parents' refrigerator. I don't know. When I picked it up, I didn't know how long it had been there. I will expect you to take a big chunk out of that. I don't know if y'all can say there's a lot of green and nastiness. Or do you want an Oreo? The moldy bread? All right. You sure it looks pretty gross? Do you trust me that it's actually going to taste good? All right. We're having a very good, so far, 2 people. I'm going to let you reach in there. I don't want to get my hands on that. Why don't you reach in, grab one for you, and grab one for your dad?
We share?
No, y'all should each get your own.
All right, here we go.
There's a lot of trust. You know, if that's actually what it looks like, y'all could end up in the hospital or something. All right, y'all want to take a big bite out of that? Make sure to get the parts that are green. How does it taste? It tastes bad? Okay, I don't know why that is. That is just a normal butter roll, whatever it says. The mold is not actually mold. It is food coloring and nutritional yeast powder that has been painted on with the finger. Totally harmless, actually something that you could pick out of the line. You can put it back. You don't have to eat more than that. All right, Kira, we're going to take the green again, and hopefully this time we can actually break our streak. Y'all can go sit down. Thank you very much. I'll make a trade with you, right? All right. All right, Chad, Alice, and Bryce, why don't you come up here? Still, Oreos, and they start in intensity, so this is a low intensity. Do y'all know the dog that lives around here, Atticus, that's outside? Don't know why I brought that up. We have some doggy-doo. Do you want to bite the doggy-doo?
It's not doggy-doo, I know that.
You think so? It looks pretty convincing. Look at all the specks that are in there.
Rather eat that than Oreos.
Or the Oreos. Those look like normal Oreos, don't they?
No, they have
What do y'all want to go for?
doggy-doo.
Doggy-doo? Alice, what about you? You want to go the Oreos?
The Oreos look like they took out the white stuff and they put deodorant on it.
Oh, it's not deodorant. I will tell you that. All right, I'll let y'all make a choice. If you want it here, this came in a little baggie. You just want to, I don't want to touch it either. You want to step in front of everybody, just take a big old bite out of that? Oh. Chad, can you tell us what that is?
I forgot what the name is.
Does it taste good? Is it actually doggy-doo? Does it taste like a Tootsie Roll, maybe? Yes. That's just Tootsie Roll and crushed up graham cracker. All right, y'all can go ahead and sit down. Well, I wasn't expecting us to have a clean streak, but we'll go ahead and go anyway. We'll just pull that apart. Yeah, let's bring up number 3. Let's see if maybe the Oreos were just a little off-putting. I'll just take the box out of the middle. Thank you. All right. Now, my mom is an excellent baker. She does fantastic cakes. And so she has made these especially chocolate-dipped chocolate truffles for y'all. So the question is, doggy do or chocolate truffles? You want to go for the doggy do? Jasper, what about you? You go for the doggy do? Kyle, what about you? Nobody wants to risk it for the biscuit? Part of me just wants to see someone go. Well, you'll probably have to like pull it apart and split it, but y'all go ahead and make your choice, commit to it. Oh, goodness. Careful, we'll lose a tooth in there. Awesome. Y'all were fantastic. Thank you. Y'all can go down. Kira, I'm going to attempt to return all of these. So we never got a chance to see what the things that looked good were, but they are still available. I might drop them into the list of things. Hey, we have a third Sunday meal after this. And so something doesn't look good, maybe it's actually good. No, so for all the different steps, I think it was Chad, he was so close. The Oreos were the Oreo cookie, but the middle had not been replaced with deodorant, it had been replaced with toothpaste. Our second step is we had a bag of gummy worms, but the gummy worms were not actually gummy worms, they were fake fish trick worms that we had pulled out. They do have a bit of an aftertaste if you decide to lick them. It's absolutely disgusting. And then the third one, these chocolate truffles, if we'll get a picture of the chocolate truffles, they look really delicious. They look fantastic. Before I show you, the youth are doing a fundraiser to sell chocolate-covered strawberries. What these actually are chocolate-covered onions that we chocolate dip. They look fantastic. Like I said, my mother is amazing. We encounter this in life so often as we encounter circumstances that look like they might be easy to overcome, or we have a way of attacking a situation that seems right in our eyes like it's going to go well, but actually goes in the opposite direction. I realize I should grab my Bible as well. That's going to be important for today. But then we also have seasons that God leads us into that we encounter, and it just seems absolutely terrible. And we wonder, how could God work out his perfect plan for us? How could this end in a positive way? And we just read with the kids, they sang the song, "Love the Lord your God by walking in his ways." And sometimes that walking in God's ways requires us to ignore our sight of what we think is going to lead for the best things. And it requires us to trust God, which is exactly what everybody up here demonstrated. They said, I know what it looks like, what the packaging might say, but I know that whatever is inside is not going to go for my benefit. And that's how we encounter the best things in life, is when we trust God rather than paying attention to the packaging or the outside. We are going to look at a story in 1 Samuel chapter 13. So if you have your Bibles, I would encourage you to turn there. We're going to encounter two biblical characters today. One is going to walk in God's ways. He'll come the second half. And then we see someone who walks by sight instead. That's who we're going to start off with. So we get to see both in this story the outcome and the results of what happens when we walk by sight or when we walk by faith. Let me give you some of the characters that we will be meeting today. The first person that we will be meeting is King Saul. A bit of a spoiler alert, he's going to be the person that walks by sight instead of by faith. We're going to see later his son Jonathan is someone who walks by faith, who exemplifies the way that we should all live our lives. And then the last person that I think is important for you to know, he's kind of a side character at this point, but it's going to be the character of Samuel. And Samuel really speaks as God's voice. He is the prophet. He's the person that receives God's word and relays it to the people. And so when Samuel speaks, it is as if God is saying something to you. And if Samuel is not able to say something, it's as if God is not able to say something directly to you. And so that is going to be the circumstances that we enter this story today. We're going to pick it up, 1 Samuel chapter 13, starting in verse 1. And it would have been great for me to bookmark it, but you can see how long it takes even me to turn to a Bible chapter. All right, so we're going to read the first two verses. Saul was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned 42 years over Israel. He chose 3,000 men from Israel for himself. 2,000 were with Saul at Michmash and in Bethel's hill country, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin. He sent the rest of his troops away, each to his own tent. This is going to be a story about war, about conflict, and so the amount of soldiers that each person has is going to play an important role. And so just lock away in your mind, Saul has 3,000 people at his disposal. That's a good amount, but we'll see how it compares to the people around. We skip down to verse 5. The Philistines, these are the classic enemy of the Israelites in the book of 1st and 2nd Samuel. They pop up over and over again. The Philistines also gathered to fight against Israel. 3,000 chariots, 6,000 horsemen, and troops as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They went up and camped at Michmash east of Bethaven. So you put yourselves in the foot of Saul. He has 3,000 people, not a small amount by any size. But then you look at the other people that he's going against. And just in charioteers, people in chariots, they equal your number. Add on top of that, they have double your force in people on horseback. And then you get to your own troop types, it's just simply uncountable. We don't know how many they are. This is an overwhelming force that he is already going up against. We pick it up in verse 6. The men of Israel saw that they were in trouble because the troops were in difficult situation. They hid in caves and thickets, among rocks, and in holes in cisterns. Some Hebrews even crossed the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul, however, was still at Gilgal, and all his troops were gripped with fear. You have 3,000 soldiers, and the people that you are leading, that you're kind of feeding off of their energy a little ways, they are running away. Your 3,000 are slipping through your fingers like grains of sand, and they are terrified. Even the people that are staying with you are thinking, there is no hope that we have for the future. So Saul has a decision to make. Something that has been brought up, or a command that Saul was given earlier that I think is important for you to know, is that Samuel, the voice of God, commanded Saul, hey, you need to wait 7 days. And at 7 days, I will come to you. We will offer the sacrifices to God. You will get God's blessing and favor. He will help you, and then you can continue in your battle. This is the decision that Saul has to make. We go down to verse 9. So Saul said, when he saw everyone was deserting him, Saul said, bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings. Then he offered the burnt offering. He violates the commands of God, and he says, when push comes to shove, my own circumstances are more pressing and more important than what God has told me to do. This isn't something just for a kingship thousands of years ago. This is things that we encounter in our day-to-day life. When we hit difficult circumstances, and we know what God has told us. When temptations come along our way, do we tell God by our actions, my circumstances, my wants and desires are more important than what you've told me? Or do we put God as the ultimate authority in our life? Do we humble ourselves to live under God's rule and reign? Because how we answer that question is going to impact our lives in the way that it impacts our lives. We're going to see how that impacts Saul here. We go down to verse 10. Just as he finished offering the burnt offering, this might have been just mere minutes after he violates God's commands because Samuel hadn't shown up. Just mere minutes later, Samuel arrived. So Saul went out to greet him. He has missed God's command by mere minutes. If he had held out just a few minutes longer, Samuel still had time to show up, but Saul panicked and gave up. And you would think at this point, the responsible action for Saul to say is he said, I have violated God's commands. I'm going to go out to Samuel, and I should say, hey, I've messed up. I have sinned against God. I chose poorly. Please help me. Forgive me of my sins. But we see that's not how it plays out. Samuel asked, what have you done? And Saul answered, when I saw that the troops were deserting me and that you did not come with the appointed days and the Philistines were gathering at Michmash, I thought the Philistines will now descend on me in Gilgal, and I have not sought the Lord's favor, so I forced myself to offer the burnt offering. Saul makes two bad mistakes here. Not only has he ignored God's commands, but he blames Samuel for the decisions that he made. He said, you didn't show up when you said you would. That's ignoring the fact that it is still the seventh day. Samuel has kept his end of the bargain. But he says, you made a mistake. You fell through on your end of the deal. It's your fault, not mine. and I was forced to. I had to make myself do this thing. There's no excuse for our disobedience. We have to own up to what our choice is. Saul should have said, I panicked, things looked grim, but I made the choice to offer it. It was my decision. But instead, he pushes the blame off to other people. And so we see what the repercussions or the consequences of Saul for that is that Samuel said to Saul, verse 13, you have been foolish, you have not kept the command the Lord your God gave you. It was at this time the Lord would have permanently established your reign over Israel. You and your sons would have always been the kings of Israel. But now your reign will not endure. The Lord has found a man after his own heart, and the Lord has appointed him as a ruler over his people, because you have not done what the Lord has commanded. His kingship is taken away from him, and it is given to another. And on top of that, then Samuel went from Gilgal to Gibeah in Benjamin, and Saul registered the troops who were with him, about 600 men. Because Saul panics, instead of receiving God's blessing and seeing God deliver him because of his actions, his refusal to admit his wrong and to go with God's plan, he's now lost Samuel, the voice of God. He has gone away. They don't know for sure how God is going to respond. He has lost the kingship, not only for him and his sons. This is a generational effect. And now he only has 600 people. It is now a 15-to-1 ratio of people that he's going to encounter in a war. Superbly terrible odds. This is the example of what happens when we live by sight instead of by faith. When we bite into the Oreos because they look good, because it's a shortcut to sweetness, but it delivers bad results on the back end. Thankfully, though, in this story, it doesn't end with this, doesn't end on a bad note. We get to see someone who does live by faith, someone who does get to follow God's direction. That comes in the form of Saul's son, Jonathan. Jonathan goes into the circumstances, and it's going to clarify for us that they don't even have weapons. The only person that has any kind of armament or sword is only going to be Saul and Jonathan. So they are even worse odds. We're going to skip over to chapter 14 to continue down. Pick it up in verse 1. The same day, Saul's son Jonathan said to the attendant who carried his weapons, come on, let's cross over to the Philistine garrison on the other side. However, he did not tell his father. So he said, let's go and see what God is going to do for us. And this is where we see the faith. This is the attitude that we should all have in verse 6. Jonathan said to the attendant who carried his weapons, come on, let's cross over to the garrison of these uncircumcised men. Perhaps the Lord will help us. Nothing can keep the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few. In the lack of knowing what God is going to direct them, Jonathan still says, let's take the step of faith forward and see what God offers us. Because he knows that it does not rely on numbers or physical circumstances for God to carry out what he needs to do. And also on top of that, he rests in the promise of what God has told him. He said, we're going to cross over to the garrison of these uncircumcised men. That's not just an insult. The circumcision was a promise for the Israelite people that God was going to be on their side, that the people who blessed them would be blessed and the people who came against them would be cursed. And so Jonathan is operating in this mindset of if people are coming against us, no matter what's happened in the past, we know that God is going to hold true to his promise and he is going to deliver. No matter the fact that we're outnumbered 15-1, no matter the fact that we don't have any weapons on our sides, no matter that we can't hear God's voice, we know that God is still going to act in favor of his people. And so he begins to walk in that way. And when we see later, the circumstances that Jonathan picks out are the worst possible circumstances you could choose when launching a surprise attack. We're going to go down to verse 8. His bearer says, I'm with you. As your heart is with your heart, I will go with whatever you decide. And Jonathan says, all right, verse 8, we will cross over to the men, and we will let them see us. If they say, wait until we reach you, then we will stay where we are and not go up to them. But if they say, come on up, and we'll go over because the Lord has handed them over to us, That will be our sign. He picks the worst possible attack method. He says, we know that God is going to be in our favor if we give up the element of surprise. We overtake a superior outnumbered force. We let them see us. I think I already said that. We have to climb up to them. They get to keep the high ground advantage. It says he's going to have to crawl up with his hands and feet. If they have swords or spears and you're climbing with your hands and feet, you have no way to defend yourself. He says, if the worst possible circumstances, I can exhaust myself going up and they get to start the battle fresh. If that's the circumstances God gives me, I know God's for me. I know that God is about to work. I don't think many of us enter our prayer lives of saying, God, if the worst possible circumstances happen, that's how I know that you're working in my life. But we know that is how God works in our own life. If we take this into our practical application, by the way that it ends up, Jonathan and his armor bearer, they climb up to the top. You can finish reading out the chapter. They kill about 20 people, and the entire force scatters and flees. Not just the people that he encounters, the entire Philistine garrison. In fact, the person that's back at the camp that's supposed to watch out and make sure that they're not going to get ambushed, the first thing that he notices is that the entire force is panicking in retreat. And they don't even know what has happened. They just know that God has worked for them and the enemy is dispersing. We see this in our own lives. The Bible talks about the reason that God leads us into difficult circumstances because God wants to move us from the place that we are to the place that we should be. Oh, there's a quote in a book that I was reading, and he talks about the purpose of ministry, the purpose of church is not to gather people or numbers. Let me pull what that quote up is. But he says that the ultimate goal of what church is to get people to pray, to trust God, and to keep God ever before their eyes that they may not sin against him. The work of the ministry is to change unbelieving sinners into praying and believing saints. And that is a challenge, a process that we have to go through. That is something that we continually work out in our lives. And as we see God answer our prayers and we continue to go further, we see that God is able to deliver us, and that increases our ability. I also want to take a moment because I think as we've lived in the life of our church, especially over the past few months, we've encountered more and more people who've hit just like physical health issues. Brandon has said, I don't know if he said it from the pulpit, but certainly in one-on-one conversations, he said, there are some awesome things that are happening here at the church. That also means that it's prime time for the devil to attack, and there's a good chance that we will encounter difficult circumstances. And it seems like, at least on the inside, the amount of reports that we get of people that are hitting financial, serious health issues just has skyrocketed over the past few weeks, we should say. And so the question is, when you are the subject of that, when you seem to have the enemy come against you, what is God doing in your life? How could he possibly be using that to deliver you from evil? How is that God working in your life? And I will say, the Bible has lots of different answers, and this is not exhaustive. I think the way that God is going to live that out in each one of our lives seems to be different because he wants to show he's not a God of copying and pasting. God has a unique way of delivering for each and every one of us. But one of the ways that it does benefits, I think we especially have a lot of mothers in our group that have hit serious health issues, and they have been handicapped from helping their families, from living out the role that they feel called to do. And you say, how, God, can this be the positive? And I think that's actually a great opportunity where it pulls the rest of the body closer together. We look at 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 22 through 26. On the contrary, these parts of the bodies that are weaker are indispensable, and those parts of the body that we consider less honorable we clothe with great honor, and our unrespectable parts are treated with great respect, which our respectable parts do not need. Instead, God has put the body together, giving great honor to the less honorable, so that there would be no division of the body, but that the members would have the same concern for one another. So if one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. If one member is honored, all the members rejoice with it. Just listen to some of these verses as I read them out. We have Galatians 6:2 that says, carry one another's burden. In this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Romans 15:1. Now we who are strong have an obligation to bear the weakness of those without strength and not to please ourselves. Hopefully you're going to catch the theme of caring for others, loving others and being focused on others as much as we love and focus on ourselves. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility, consider others as more important than yourselves. We exhort you, brothers and sisters, warn those who are idle, comfort the discouraged, help the weak, be patient with everyone. It is so easy in our lives to feel like we need to be self-sufficient. We need to be able to carry ourselves. And the downside of everyone carrying themselves, it never gives an opportunity for us to care for one another. Never gives a chance for us to consider others more important. It never gives us a chance to live out the law of Christ. So it could be, as difficult as it is, when you are in circumstances you cannot help or return the favor to anybody else, but all you can do is just receive help from other people, that's a great growing opportunity for the entire church, for other people to take a step up and say, we do want to help. We want to be able to be the hands and feet of Jesus. We come into this church and we all say we have nothing righteous of ourselves. We all admit that we're all sinners and we need God to unconditionally save us. We have nothing to offer God. So it shouldn't be that big of a jump for us to also say, I have other situations in my life where I just need to accept help from other people. And the great part about it is when we accept help from other people, when other people help us and we can't return anything in the favor, I can tell you just from this past week of my experience, I got to go visit my family down in Corpus Christi, and the church that they've been a part of for a long time did a fantastic job of coming and helping our family through a severe, an unexpected physical crisis. And having people from the church come over just made me so incredibly grateful that I wanted to pour out help back to them, but was unable to. And it made me think, how can I do this for other people? And it's a great reflection of how when Jesus forgives us, we can never forgive Jesus because Jesus has never done anything against us. But we want to take this overwhelming sense of gratitude for our forgiveness and we want to push it to somebody else. And we say, who and how can I go and forgive other people? How can I treat other people right? Because it doesn't seem like it always leads in the best direction. We go back to our analogy at the beginning of the food. It doesn't seem like it's going to head in the best direction. But God uses these difficult situations in our lives to pull us closer to Him, to turn us into the people that He wants us, to humble us down. And so you may be here in this church, and you may never have had a relationship with God. You may not be able to say, I know that God is on my side. That can change. You may have been chasing the sweet things of life that seem to promise benefits up front, but actually have delivered sourness in the back. The good news is even though, just like Jonathan, even though Samuel had left and it seemed like a hopeless situation, God was still willing to work in His people's lives as soon as they called out and turned to Him. And if you want to become a part of New Faith Baptist Church, the Christian life is not something that you live alone. It is something that we do with other people. It's something that we have to trust and rely on other people. You are missing out on the full Christian experience if you are not committed to, plugged into a church, meeting with people on the regular, having them pour into your life. We're going to open up the altar that you can come and lay down your burdens. If you need someone to pray for you, this would be a wonderful chance to do it. If you want to join this church, you can speak with Brandon or myself. But we encourage you, respond as God is leading you to. We'll go ahead and have y'all stand as the band leads us in a time of worship. Respond as God leads you to.